Okay, step one, we have to remove the current discharge chute. Now we want to install the, or mark and cut the blocker plate. So what I found the easiest to do is to a couple C-clamps and just clamp this blocker plate to the mower. And we'll line it up on the back edge, the back corner, and then we'll come across to the front, second C-clamp. What we're going to do is just make sure that we're basically straight across the front here, or across the top. We've got a good line. Just use the deflector angle and just going to mark a line to cut on. Then we'll go ahead and cut this to length. We should not need to cut any off the top of it. Now we want to go ahead and put the spring mount into its proper position on the grass flap itself. So we're going to remove this bolt. We're going to have to loosen. So with that out of the way, we can rotate the spring mount up. We're just going to snug that up for right now because we don't know exactly the final position of that spring mount. Now we want to install the cable into the spring mount itself, so we're going to pull this rubber boot off, spin this first nut off, and that cable basically slips into the slot. We'll put the locking nut back in position. We're just going to turn this nut on for about 2 or 3 threads because we want it as short as possible out here, and then we'll spin the back side up. The purpose on putting the cable on at this point is just so that as we begin to fit, we want to make sure we've got a good route for the cable. So so that's why we've started it on here. Now we're ready to position the grass flap on the mower deck itself. And so what I've done to get started is I've taken the blocker plate that I marked and cut earlier, and I've reclamped it to the opening, and this is so that I can get good spacing for the location of my hinge plate. And so I'm going to use these 2 spacers that come with the kit, and so I'm just going to line these up. I'm going to try and position it. Kind of ideally is to position it with an inch or inch and a half of spacing back behind this second factory discharge chute tab, and we'll locate these aluminum spacers, making sure that we've got this in proper position. And once those are located, then we'll set this up. We'll take our marker, go ahead and mark the location of both spacers. We're marking the inside, so now what we can do is come back and center punch those marks and drill it, and then come back and install the flap itself, or the hinge plate itself. In this case, we're going to actually go ahead and use a no drill mount, but that's how you would do it if you were going to use the spacers. So next step then is going to be to install the no drill mount. This is a option that you can get with the grass flaps for the Wright mower. Its option number is 11-82-04. Comes with the instructions that we need and all of the hardware that we're going to need to do the install. So basically what this is it's two short pieces of angle that are going to bolt here, and then this long piece of angle is going to attach to those as well. So our first step is going to be to go ahead and loosely assemble the entire unit. With the no drill mount loosely assembled, then the next thing we want to do is drop our second set of 5/16 by 1 bolts into place here, and then we're going to position this onto the mower itself. And again, we're going to start our nuts on. I'm just going to snug these bolts up, and then I'm going to go ahead and tighten the back half. Again, I'm just going to snug these down tight until I get everything assembled, and then I'll do the finished tightening after that. Now that we have the no drill mount snugged into place, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and just position the GrassFlap onto the no drill mount. And for this, we're going to use, there's some 3/8 by 1 bolts that came with the kit, so we're going to use these to get started. So using my 9/16 wrenches, I'll go ahead. I don't want to tighten these all the way down firm because I have to be able to slide this GrassFlap itself in and out to position it once we get the blocker plate and the deflector angle installed. Okay, now what we want to do is go ahead and drill a couple of these attaching screws and start them in place to get everything lined up. And so we're going to pick a couple of the lower ones. So and the drill bit, you can use a 1/4 inch, but I like to go 1/64 bigger than that. But a 1/4 inch would work. It would just make things a little bit tighter for the install. With the 2 holes drilled, what we want to do is go ahead and open this out. We're going to remove this blocker plate from where it's clamped, and we're going to go ahead and install a couple of T-nuts into it. So now what we want to do is get our T-nuts out of the kit. They're in a blue bag. So here's our T-nuts. I'm just going to dump these out up here. So the T-nut, what it is, we've got the threaded side, which I don't know if you can see them or not. It's got little serrations on it that we're actually going to drive in, and then the screw goes on the back side. And this is what sandwiches the 2 halves together. And you can crank these screws pretty daggone tight to secure it. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to position this, taking our GrassFlap, make sure we got the front corner, which I've notched off a little bit more. Make sure when you install these, you get it on the correct side. So we're going to put it here. We're actually going to take a hammer and drive these in. With the T-nuts driven into our blocker plate, then the next step is going to be to position the blocker plate and go ahead and Start these two bolts in place. So what I usually do is I usually go ahead and run these in tight to pull the T-nut in place. Then I'm going to loosen them back out. So all I'm trying to do is make sure that I've got the T-nut fully seated. That way I know it'll line up in the hole. And again, I back these out fairly loose, and I'll show you why here. Now we want to go ahead and position the deflector angle, which goes between the blocker plate and the hinge plate. And what we're going to actually have to do is, with the deflector angle in here, it gets keeps from going all the way closed because of these parts on the mower itself. And so we're going to have to trim this deflector angle. So we've got the deflector angle position here. What we want to do then is go ahead and mark where it's being held out. So we're going to, when you mark this, be sure to leave about a quarter of an inch space on either end, so the grass flap, as it moves back and forth, well, it doesn't get blocked. Okay. Okay. So what I use for cutting the deflector angle is some snips, and I'm going to come in here where we marked the back end, and I can actually go ahead and cut this all the way out for the one on the back. Then the two in the middle, I'm going to cut to the depth of the line that I had marked. And then, using a simple pair of channel locks or another pair of pliers, what you can do is actually then just bend this. This will snap out of your way. What I like to do is to come back and then just put a little, nip that corner off so that it doesn't poke you later on. Now we've got our deflector angle cut. We're going to go ahead and put it in place, and so we'll line up with our cuts onto the obstacles that we had, make sure it all looks good. It does. So the next step then is to remove the red backer off the tape itself. Now you have to be careful because this is very sticky, so you need to make sure that when you position it that you don't accidentally close it too soon. Alright, very good. So now we have that in place, we can go ahead and tighten up our screws. Now we want to go ahead and attach the blocker plate to the hinge plate itself. I've finished drilling these remaining holes. So now we have all these snugged up, we want to go ahead and finish tightening them. As I mentioned before, you can go fairly tight on these. I don't like to finish tighten with the impact because it's hard to tell how tight you've got everything, but we'll be sure you get them fairly snug. And by that I mean you don't kill it, but you want to go pretty tight on it. Now we want to go ahead and attach the flap spring itself. What I usually use is a 1/2 inch or a 7/16 wrench, either one. You can then grip that to pull. Got that in position. Okay, so next thing we want to do is get our spring mount positioned properly. In this case, on the Wright mower with a 61-inch deck, we want the cable aimed fairly low. So we're going to position it here. Go ahead and tighten up this bolt, and don't forget to come back and make sure that this hinge bolt is back tightened. In place, let's just check, make sure that it operates smoothly, and it does. So in good shape there. Okay, so now what we want to do is make sure that we've got a good closure across here. So what we're going to do is we're going to just check the top and the front edge to make sure that the blocker plate is basically contacting flat against those surfaces. And in our case, we got lucky, and it is. So with that in place, then what we want to do is come back and go ahead and tighten our locking bolts to position this. This is easier to do usually with it up in the open position. Okay, so what we want to do is come back and tighten all the bolts for the no drill mount. So we'll start here. Okay, I've removed the covers, the right side belt cover and the pump cover back in the back. The next thing we want to do is route our cable. And on the ZK, there's actually a slot cut into the frame itself that we can pass the cable through and then run it up here underneath the idler and on up to the front. Some of the smaller Wright mowers, there may not be a hole here, so what you would have to do is take you a 9/16 or 5/8 drill bit and cut you a hole in there. What you have to avoid on the Wright mowers is this muffler gets extremely hot. So any kind of cable routing that runs up here underneath the muffler is likely to get damaged due to heat. So we want to try and stay down below all of the belts here as we go toward the rear of the mower. So the first thing that we've got to do is, once again, pull the rubber boot off, spin these two nuts off. We need to do this in order to be able to pass it through that hole, so these nuts will actually be able to flex a little bit sideways and pass them through the hole. So So here's the cable where it runs coming off the deck up here, and you can see this striper bar, and there's also the frame for the operator platform as well. The convenient place would be to run it up through here, but that's not good because this cable will end up getting damaged if it's the lowest thing under the lawnmower. So you want to make sure you go above this. You want to make sure you go above this bar up here on top. So let's go up on top here and I'll show you the same bar that we were talking about, and you can see the cable running through back here. And what we're going to try and aim this cable is to come right through this little opening. In order to do that, we're going to need to remove the nuts and pass that cable through here. So let's go ahead and do that. By removing the nuts and fishing it through there, well, then we're able to go ahead and pull that cable on through. Okay, so now we've got the cable routed where we would like to have it. We're going to go ahead and spin these nuts back on. And on the pedal end, what you're looking to do is get this nut almost all the way on, within a couple threads of being all the way on. So the next thing then we're going to go ahead and do is hook to our pedal. And so to do that, what we're going to do is remove this spring. That allows us to open the pedal out to this open position. And now what we need to do is to go ahead and attach this removable clevis to our ball end. This is the pedal end of the cable. We're then going to come up here and attach our pin. Insert our cotter pin so it all stays together. Okay, now that we have the clevis and the cable attached, what we want to do then is just lay the pedal over, slide the nut on up toward the rubber boot, and you can actually, before we do that, we've got to get the pedal closed. So you need to close the pedal up so that it'll all pass. And once it does, then you can get up in here, spin this nut on. So we're going to go all the way down. We're going to snug that up. We're going to slide the boot, try and get it in place here. So we've got the boot, and you can see the reason we do it in that order is because it won't pass if you connect it here first and then try and close the pedal. You won't have any luck. You'll end up damaging stuff. So connect clevis, close the pedal, insert the cable the rest of the way, spin the nut down onto it, and now we've got that connected here. Last step then is we want to reconnect this spring. There's a little hook up here, and the spring comes down and catches over this back corner here. Okay, so now we've got the pedal back in position. So now we're in a position to decide where we want to put this pedal. And on the ZKs, it usually works best right toward the center. There's a couple of existing holes that are here that we can actually bolt right through and bolt the pedal down with, and that'll let the cable route up around the edge of the cover here, and we'll be in pretty good shape. We'll just have to tie the cable down. So let's go ahead and bolt this pedal down. Okay, so now we're ready to bolt the pedal down. We're using the 5/16 by 1 flange head bolt and nut, and this one up here is a little tricky to get to, but doable. Now you can reach in using a 1/2-inch wrench and socket. Okay, now we've got the pedal bolted down, we put the cover on, and so what you need to make sure is that this cable is around the outside edge of this pump cover. So one step that's very important is to ensure that you strap the cable down. The reason for that is because this area right here has got to stay straight. If it doesn't, you're going to end up with a failure down the road from this getting bent. So what you would do is use a strap or a wire tie, and my fingers out of the way, position this guy here where you could then use these. There's self-drilling screws that come with the kit, and so you can go ahead and now we're going to attach the cable to the flap itself. So the first thing we have to do, there's a small bushing in the kit that goes in this hole, and we're going to take the clevis itself and fit it over that bushing and insert the 3/16 pin. So a couple points to make here is that you want to be sure the head of the pin is on this side, because when it opens up, you want it to be able to pass the spring without getting hung up. So the cable routing up under the belts and that is just going to be right off the end of this idler pulley and then around here. This is on a 61-inch deck. Depending on the deck size, whether you'll go over the center, around the center spindle or in front of it, you just need to make sure whatever route you pick doesn't have the cable end up laying against one of the spindles itself. It can lay against the base, but just not against the actual turning part of the mower. And then the last step would be to raise and lower your deck, just to make sure that the cable isn't getting up into the belts in the low position where you would normally mow. Well, what we want to do is go ahead and secure these nuts so that it doesn't move around on us. So I'm lift this up out of the way. And once again, these don't have to be super tight, just enough that they don't come loose in operation. So we've got this one done, and then we want to go ahead and do the other end. Make sure the jam nuts are tight on the flap end as well. Again, they don't have to be over tightened, and be sure that the boot is pushed in place.
Okay.
Bring the flap to the balance point and try and set it at the lowest point where it will stay. Once you have it there, then using one finger to kind of mark where you are in space, and take your second finger and push until the flap pops open. What you're looking for is a gap between the tip of this finger and the tip of this finger of an inch or less. And what we're doing here is making sure the flap is free to operate, so it's not binding as you open and close it. With the flap in the balance position, you want to check how much clearance there is between the pedal and it bottoming out. So I'm going to push by hand. And you can see I'm able to push down fairly firm and able to get it to contact right here, which is the bottom out position. That's as low as you would like to have the pedal, and it's about right, because you want the pedal to bottom out before all the pressure goes on the cable itself. So that's a pretty good spot right there. If I needed to change the height of this pedal, what I would do is come in here with these adjusting nuts, and if I go ahead and take that front nut, and I'm just going to loosen it up this way and show you with that play in there. So now with the pedal in the down position, if I pull this cable so I'm against that front nut, you see what's happening to the pedal? So it's actually raising up. So I can adjust the height of that pedal by where these nuts are positioned. So if I wanted to raise it up a little bit, I would spin this nut off some and bring the back nut up to tighten it, and that would put it in this position. But that's going to be too tall I've got too much clearance here. So what I want to do is go ahead and spin that nut back down. And I can give the back nut just a turn or two to bring it up just a little bit, but I don't want to bring it up very much. Now we have everything in place. We have the pedal height adjusted. Well, what we want to do is go ahead and secure these nuts so that it doesn't move around on us. So I lift this up out of the way. And once again, these don't have to be super tight, just enough that they don't come loose in operation. So we've got this one done, and then we want to go ahead and do the other end. Make sure the jam nuts are tight on the flap end as well. Again, they don't have to be over tightened, and be sure that the boot is pushed in place. We want to test the spring tension to make sure that it's correct for operating the flap. So what we'll do is we'll balance, bring it just to the lower balance position, and now we're going to go back and step on the pedal, which is going to be in the down position. And when we step on it, we're going to observe what happens, which way the flap moves. Does it move up a little bit? Does it move down a little bit? Or does it stay exactly where it is? So you can see when I stepped on it, it crept forward, or crept toward the open position just a little bit, and now it's stuck. No matter how many times I push on the pedal, I can't get it to move. And it finally kicks over. So in this particular case, we have too much spring tension here, so we need to release some of that to allow it, when I step on that pedal, we want it to pull toward the closed position. So in order to adjust that spring, what you're going to need is a wrench and then a pair of pliers to grab the end of this bolt. And in this case, we've got too much tension because it's trying to pull it to the open position. So what I want to do is release some of that tension. So I'm going to back the nut off. So let's try it there. You can kind of pay attention to the gap here. Usually if it's a thumb's width or so, it's about right, but let's just see how this one works. So once again, we're going to put it to the balance position. So as I'm pushing on the pedal, I'm not getting it to move anywhere. So I still have too much tension on the spring. So I'm going to back it off a little bit farther. So here we are, about a thumb's width. To the balance position. So after repeatedly tapping on it, I'm able to get it to go ahead and go to the closed position. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty good spring tension spot. Keep in mind that as you start mowing in that, you're going to get dirt and grass on here, so it's going to make this a little heavier, which will make it a little bit easier to fall to the closed position.